Okay, Ward Sandler here with episode 3 of Get Leads Online. I'm here with Joshua. Joshua, would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Joshua Jordison, but you can call me JJ.
Great. And JJ, could you give us a little rundown of what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. I do a few different things. I produce music festivals and smaller events, and I also help technology companies connect to influencers in the music and entertainment industry.
Gotcha. Okay. And how long have you been in business?
I've been in the music industry for about 8 years now, and I've been doing the consulting thing, helping people connect to influencers for about 4 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And in those 4 years, roughly how many clients would you say you've had?
Yeah, it's been dozens of clients over that 4 year period. I would say around 15 that I actually can disclose, and then I have a few that I have non-disclosure agreements with because like they're, you know, deep in the entertainment industry and they don't want people to know that they have someone helping them with something like this.
Uh,
But yeah, dozens over those periods.
Sounds very secretive. uh,
It sounds way more interesting than it actually is, I promise.
no worries. Okay, so that's definitely a a solid number of clients. So
Mhm.
would you say, do you have any kind of average as far as maybe per month how many new clients
Mhm.
you get, or is it doesn't really work that way for you?
It really depends. It depends on what the scope of work is with a client, but typically I'll be juggling at least three at a time. The most I've had at one period was about six, and I've had as few as two. It really depends because each client I have will have really different things that they need.
Right. So you don't. It sounds like your clients are on sort of temporary engagements. It's not one of those things that
Hmm.
year after year after year they're with you. It's more of a
Right.
temporary thing.
Yeah, exactly. My goal is always to make myself irrelevant within 6 to 9 months, because basically what I'm doing is I'm helping them meet people that control things in the music industry and helping them foster relationships, do business development things, licensing, and then once I get them to a certain point, they don't need to work with me anymore and they don't need to work with anyone like me ever again. So that's the goal.
Okay. Okay. So while when you're trying to get all these new clients to work with
Hmm.
you, so obviously it sounds like it's relatively boutique. You don't take on
Hmm.
hundreds of clients at a time. You have, like you said,
Hmm.
between 2 and 6.
Right.
So what have you done to try and get new leads in general?
It's a great question. So it's always, somewhat challenging to find new clients. One of the things that you hear people talk about a lot is finding your niche, knowing what your client profile is, and I think that's definitely a good thing. I definitely know exactly what my ideal client looks like, but at the same time, when you have that, it's a narrow field. So I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried using Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, in-person networking events. I have an email newsletter that goes out every week. So I've tried a lot of different things. Some work really well, some don't work at all, and then you got to stop doing those things, I guess, right? So
Yeah. All right. Well, so there's a couple things there I want to
yeah,
address. The first is you said that you have a crystal clear picture of who
hmm,
your audience is, who your target
absolutely,
customer is. So could
yeah.
you describe that? Just so people listening can get an idea when we say specific, what does
Hmm.
specific mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important thing to have. So my ideal client is a technology company that's young. So that means um, they're backed by venture capital somewhere between their seed and Series B round. Uh, for people, there might be some people listening who aren't familiar with those terms. So that basically means that they've raised usually between 500,000 to several $1 million, and they're looking for quick up and to the right growth, and they need relationships with people in the music industry, but they don't know anyone in that industry. So that's how specific I get.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So, good jumping back to your answer before. So, it sounds like you've tried a number of different channels to help with marketing. You mentioned some social channels, email marketing. So, could you kind of delve into what has worked for you the best?
Yeah, absolutely. When I started off, Facebook was a great way to figure out who was working in a company, and then I could approach them. Twitter was the same. That's really changed within the past 6 to 12 months. Facebook just seems to be less and less relevant. Twitter is still good, but I've moved most of my, I guess you could say, online lead prospecting to LinkedIn. And I'm in a bit of a different situation than some other people might be because I have such a specific audience I'm going for. I'm not necessarily blasting out to hundreds or thousands of people at once, so I'm really doing a lot of specific data mining in there, and it's a great way to search for, different companies, different company profiles, and then find the right contact at that particular company.
So, why is LinkedIn better at finding that level of specificity, compared to Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or these other platforms?
So I'd say there's really three reasons to that. One is that LinkedIn is the only professional social network of its size online. There are over 300 million people on there. So it's expected that if you're on that network, you're open to the idea of people coming to you to talk business. Facebook, not so much. Twitter, a little bit more than Facebook, but still not even close to the degree of LinkedIn. The second thing is that it's really highly searchable, and you can really drill down a lot deeper. Like you could go on there and search for a specific type of person in a specific type of position in a specific industry and then in a specific location. You can't really do that on Facebook or Twitter to the extent. And then the last thing is that LinkedIn is just right now a really hot space for people to interact. They have what's called LinkedIn Pulse, which is a section where different influencers like Richard Branson or Deepak Chopra or even the CEO of LinkedIn will post articles, and then you can go on there and interact with them and comment, and it's a great way to build your brand. And you can also post articles. LinkedIn is letting a small part of their users post articles, and it's like having a blog on your social networking page. So it's just way more engaged right now than Facebook and Twitter. I feel like a lot of people, especially in the professional realm, have really moved away from Facebook, and they're starting to migrate over to LinkedIn even more than they were before.
Okay, so the depth of search and also just the content, the business context of LinkedIn is what you're saying are the main reasons.
Yeah, I think Facebook and Twitter are still good tools to figure out who people are and where they are, but LinkedIn allows you to approach in a context that's considered normal. If you're on there, it's to be expected that you're going to be approached for business purposes and that you're going to approach other people for business purposes also. So you don't have to pretend. You don't have to beat around the bush.
Right. No, I like that. That's an interesting way to look at it, and that makes a lot of sense. So you'd say of all the social networks, LinkedIn's been the most successful for you. What other channels for marketing have you tried that have worked?
So I think it helps to be able to figure out who people are and then just get their contact information and reach out to them and just do like an email newsletter. So that's one thing that I do. I guess you could say that I use sort of a protracted marketing funnel. I am always interested to get to know a person first on a human level. I mean, we're all human anyway, right? And then bringing them in and figuring out if it makes sense to work together or not, and not having any expectations. So I think that's having real relationships with people in whatever way you can online is a great way to bring in leads, as long as you can handle all the traffic. So just connecting with a lot of people and seeing what comes out of it. I mean, specifically on LinkedIn, I'm connecting to roughly 250 to 500 new people every week. So I'm getting, between 1,000 and 2,000 potential leads every month from that platform.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of crazy, but but it works. It works for me.
So with email marketing specifically,
hmm
what type of content are you sending out to your audience?
So I have a weekly newsletter called the Native Champion, and it's just an inspirational newsletter that goes out every Monday morning. I include a quote in the beginning, and then I'll have basically a blog post type content on some sort of topic that's inspirational. It's called the Native Champion newsletter because I see the world in a very specific way. I believe that all of us are born to do great things. Like, and the name is basically like, I'm a native Angelino, right? You might be a native New Yorker, but we're all native champions. We're all born to do great things. So I think having a relationship with people where you can send out a newsletter to several thousand people every week and just help them start off their week in a great way is a great way to bring in potential customers, because you might not get leads even from the most specific people on your email list, but they might tell their friends about you. It's a network effect.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Have you personally noticed through your email list, has that actually led to any clients?
Yeah, it has happened a couple of times where I was introduced from a person who was on the list who was also an acquaintance to somebody who needed my types of services. I think it's when you're doing the type of work that I'm doing, when you're consulting, you have to keep a lot of plates spinning at the same time. So it's good to have something like that in addition to whatever else you're doing online for lead generation marketing.
Sure, sure. So
Yeah.
with LinkedIn, you mentioned you were getting, I think you said a couple thousand
hmm
leads from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Was it every week or every month?
Every month.
Every month.
Yeah.
And
hmm
and you're getting that through by posting articles on LinkedIn, and by what other methods specifically are you doing?
Yeah. So let's see. It's a question of how far back you want to go. A few months ago, I was really frustrated with LinkedIn, and I wasn't really getting those kind of results. I wasn't really getting any results, and I was pretty much ready to delete my account and try something else. And instead of doing that, I just gave myself, a few weeks to really give it all I had and try to learn a lot more about how I could benefit from the platform. And everything that I learned during that several week intensive period of figuring out different things led me to the results I'm getting now. So to answer your question, it's about how your profile is written. It's about being engaging and authentic, how you interact with people. It has to do with posting articles, commenting on articles, posting in groups, and just a whole slew of other things to help. And it kind of depends on how much you want to get out of it. If you want to get 100 new connections a month, 500, 1,000, there are different ways to do it.
Okay. And would you say that LinkedIn has generated more clients for you than email marketing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because I can go directly to somebody. Like, let's say I wanted to find a client at a technology company in LA that was just closing their A round. I could go onto LinkedIn, bring up that company, and find all of the people who work there, and then approach the correct person, which is super important, because if you are going after a specific client that you would like to work with, and you approach the wrong person in the company, like if you approach somebody who does their publicity instead of their business development, that makes it look like you don't know what you're doing. And you can lose a client just for something as simple as that. And being on LinkedIn allows you to see who the right people are to approach so you don't make that mistake.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit. So,
Sure.
any other marketing channels that have worked for you? Have you done any kind of SEO strategies or Google AdWords strategies at all?
Yeah, my business in particular doesn't really benefit from stuff like that. Apart from online marketing, I'll just go to networking events in person and then follow up with those people via my newsletter or on social media channels. But SEO, stuff like that, people aren't really necessarily searching for what I do.
Right, right, because it's very
it's
niche.
A bit different. It is. It's very niche. Yeah.
Okay. Have you done any sort of webinars or ebooks?
Yeah, I haven't done any yet, but I'm going to be doing some webinars within the next few weeks. I just joined a community online called Fizzle, which you guys are familiar with.
Yeah, Fizzle's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to plug that. And so I've learned a lot about how you could do webinars to reach out to people, so I'll definitely be doing that. What was the other thing that you mentioned besides webinars?
Ebooks?
Yeah, ebooks. I'm probably going to be publishing a couple of ebooks within the next several months.
And what's going to be your distribution strategy? How are you going to let people even know that they exist?
They're going to be on Amazon, and I'll have my email newsletter that I can let people know about it, and just on different social networks. And then I think, trying to do guest posts on different blogs or being on podcasts, stuff like that, and just grinding it out, letting people know.
Right. I mean, what's interesting for your email newsletter, it sounds like it's not very salesy. It's more just here's a quote, here's interesting articles. There's nothing to buy. I'm just kind of being helpful. So if one time you do send out one of these emails and say, oh, by the way, I also have an ebook for sale. At least from what I've read and from what we've experienced personally, it seems like that's a good approach because these people aren't used to you selling to them. They're not going to just ignore it because you don't usually sell to them. This is a rare event, so they'll actually pay attention. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point, and this is actually one of my favorite points in social media to harp on, is that if in real life, when you have a relationship with someone, like let's say I met you guys at an event, I wouldn't shake your hand and say, hey, nice to meet you, my name's JJ, would you like to buy my stuff, right? We would have a conversation, we'd get to know each other, and then maybe down the road, if it was a good fit, I might pitch you something, I might not. But for some reason, a lot of people tend to think that online you can just go straight in and ask somebody to buy something when that doesn't make any sense at all, I wrote an article on LinkedIn about this that got some pretty good response. It's called Social Media, Not Buy My Shit Media. I really think that that's something people need to think more about.
Yeah, no, I think the natural inclination, especially if you're a small business and especially if you're perhaps struggling a little bit with cash flow, is, oh my God, I need sales, I need more sales, so I just try to get everyone to buy everything, and it's counterintuitive to actually that's the opposite of, that's the wrong approach, and it's actually going to hurt sales in the long run.
Yeah, it's totally understandable why people would do it, but you might contact 1,000 people and get a few people to bite, but it's a really short-term play. It's not a long-term play that's going to work.
Yeah, what we found works well is to try just to provide value, just simply answer people's questions online, whether it's social or blog commenting or LinkedIn, like you had mentioned, just responding to people's questions, actually being helpful with answers, and not providing and not trying to sell anything at all. Because if you provide an answer that's actually helpful to your people in your audience that are reading that article, will read it and be like, oh, this person seems to know what they're talking about, and they will go through the motion of clicking on your profile, perhaps contacting you if they think that what you said is useful.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I do that in my own way offline too. I'm always, every day, I'm introducing multiple people in the music industry to multiple people in the technology industry and not expecting anything in return, just because it keeps me in the swing of things. And at the end of the day, if we're not doing what we do because we love doing it and we love helping people, why are we doing it to begin with? I feel like,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So changing gears a little bit here, what would you say, what are some marketing strategies online that you've tried that have not worked well?
Well, I think doing marketing on Facebook and Twitter, I tried that. I tried doing some advertising campaigns on both platforms, and it just didn't work specifically for my niche. I know a lot of people have great success with Facebook ad campaigns, specifically if they're selling an online product or something like that, but I found that for something that's as specific as what I'm doing, there isn't even really a large enough audience to market to on there, which is crazy because there are, so many different users on Facebook. So I think it just really speaks to, the point that just because one thing works for a lot of people or other people, don't assume it's going to work for you. Try different things. Don't be afraid to fail. But at the same time, if you're going to put up an AdWords campaign or a Facebook campaign, just start off by spending a small amount of money and testing it. I'm always very careful before I do anything new. I'll always test, and that's something that I think everybody should really do.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so the last question we have is, if, let's say, some people in the audience are definitely going to be brand new or just very inexperienced when it comes to online marketing, not really sure where to start. It's definitely very overwhelming if you've never done it before. It seems like there's an infinite number of things you could do or where to start, and a lot of people just don't do anything instead. So for those people out there that are sort of struggling with what's the first step to take, what would you recommend is a good course of action?
So my first step would be like a couple of things integrated into it, if that's okay. So you've got to have an online presence. If you have a website for your company, start a blog, start posting on there, set up some kind of thing where people can subscribe to an email newsletter, and then pick one of the social networks. My top 4 are LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, in that order. So pick one of them that really speaks to you. If you're a photographer and you're selling a product, teaching people how to take great photos, obviously Instagram is the best place for you. But just figure out what works for you. Don't try to spread yourself too thin and be amazing on all of those social networks. Just have your blog, have your newsletter, which, by the way, you should probably set up with MailChimp because it's free unless you're hitting a lot of people, and get on a social network and start meeting people.
So regarding the blog, I've heard this from a lot of our clients. They say, "Oh, I want to start blogging. I have no idea what to blog about." What would you recommend? Or obviously not topic necessarily, but what we found at least is trying to blog about useful advice that's helpful for your audience, for people that might be buying things from you. Not trying to sell them information. Not the sales part is, again, one of those counterintuitive things. Don't sell them anything on your blog. Just try to provide helpful advice and answer problems, or try to fix problems that they have.
Yeah, I think the best way that I like to think about this is that the internet, blogs, they're just tools. It's not a separate universe. So try to pretend that you're sitting across the table from somebody who is coming to you for help, or maybe they're a future client, and then just put that into a blog. Talk to the world about what it is that you know. I think that's a really important thing too, is don't give advice about something unless you've had success in it. That's another thing that I find really strange and funny about a lot of people online, is they'll give advice about things that they don't know anything about. It's like, oh, well, what do you do online? Well, how do you make money online? Well, I make money online telling people how to make money online. Kind of a weird thing that's going on online. But just speaking about what you're passionate about and what you can help people with is going to go a lot further than some people think. And don't assume that you don't know anything about your topic. There will always be people out there who know less than you, and you can just help those people. You don't have to be a genius in something. You just have to have some sort of background in it.
All right, I think that's a good place to leave it. I want to thank JJ for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, take care.
All right, have a good one.